Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to G Bear's Off-Grid Ways, a homestead in the desert. And yeah, we're back in the battery room. The reason I'm here is to start tonight's video. I want to give a shout out to the mechanical engineering students at Lehigh University in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. I appreciate your questions, and I'm glad you checked in on my videos and have an interest in renewable energy. And yeah, your job is going to be to design a set of blades for whether it be a vertical or horizontal shaft turbine that are going to be able to turn the turbine fast enough to create the electricity needed to charge batteries. Okay. These are all 6-volt batteries, but I have them tied together 2 at a time to make a 12-volt battery. So that's a 12-volt battery, that's a 12-volt battery, that's a 12-volt battery, and that's a 12-volt battery, so forth and so on, all the way across. And then I'm not going to go into the electronics on that because I know your project isn't going to do that. But I did want to touch base because I got an email from Arthur today, and he wanted to clarify a few things in my last video. And yeah, glad you did. Okay, so for battery connections, you could use clip-ons like these, but they are not the best way. Okay, loose connections in electricity are the #1 cause of failure. A loose connection will heat up and it'll start eating away, and you can see the what do you want to call it there, the corrosion building up on that thing, because it just is not the most efficient way. Your best way is to use solder-on connections, and I made up all of these cables. I bought welding cable, and then I bought these solder-on ends, or eyelets, and you can buy these in all different gauges. Okay, so these were for 2 gauge, for this 2 gauge wire, and you solder them into place using rosin core solder. You cannot use acid core. It'll eat up the wiring and the copper fittings. Got to be rosin core. Okay, I keep my rosin core around. It's an old roll, been with me for a long time because you don't use much. The average way to look at it is the size of your fitting, which is, this is like a 3/8 fitting. So for a 3/8 fitting, I'm going to use twice that length in solder, so probably a 3/4 inch length of solder, and that'll hold that in place. I always put a little extra, and I actually fill the unit with solder. I have this facing downwards when I'm soldering it, and I heat it with a little propane torch like that, and as soon as it's ready to flow, I just run an inch or so into the fitting, and then cool it with a rag and clean off any excess rosin or anything that came around the outside. Always want to clean your fittings. My fittings need to be cleaned here. My batteries need to be maintained. I got to get to that because last time I maintained them was back on 5/15, and it's already the end of 7. I like to go every 2 months on these things and make sure I keep them in good working order. They need to be cleaned and washed down a little bit, and you refill your batteries on these type of lead acid batteries. You fill them with distilled water only, no tap water. Okay, so I'll be doing that, but that's besides the point. I just wanted to cover the soldering ends. Now the ones that you'll be using, because I know you're talking about 10 gauge wire on yours, and you're not having a very long run, so 10 gauge should do. Okay, so this is an eyelet, and that's 5/16 hole in the eyelet right there, and then this is for 10 gauge wire, so I can solder that onto a piece of wire. I always keep some of these extras around just for emergencies. So the battery connections themselves, it'll determine on what kind of battery pole you have. Okay, so now these have the double types of battery poles. You can't see them because they have the covers on, but there's a bolt sticking out of here, so I can use eyelets on the top of the bolt. But there's actually a regular large lead connector on there, so I can use a regular automotive battery terminal connector. And these are kind of like the same, but they put them, instead of having the bolt come out of the top of that, they have them side by side. Okay, so depending on what type of battery connections you have, that's what type of connector you use. All right, and also you wanted to know about charging a smartphone off of the system after it's set up. Okay, well, this is what I was talking about. These are for replacement cigarette lighters. Now, a lot of the new cars, and I don't know, the younger generation may not even know what a cigarette lighter is in a car, because they don't make them anymore unless you specify it and pay extra for it. Mostly all of the cars now come with something like this, but it's for cell phone charging only, or smartphone charging. So you cannot plug a cigarette lighter into those new styles. These old styles, you could put a cigarette lighter push-in button in there. You'd push it in, and when it got hot, it would pop out, and then it was hot enough to light a cigarette. Of course, I quit smoking way back in the 80s, so I don't really have a use for them, but I always keep some of these around because they're great for making connections for DC voltage. All right, so I was saying on the connections, the center pole at the bottom here, that is your positive. The side connector here that's on the side casing is your negative connector. Okay, so when you plug in your little cell phone charger unit here, it will be positive touching here and negative here. Now, if you don't want to buy one of those, just use a couple of pieces of wire with alligator clips. Clip one on here, go to the positive pole of the battery, clip one on here, and go to the negative pole of the battery, and then plug your cell phone USB connector in there. All right, well, you got all that done. Thank you all for the wonderful letters of thanks that you sent me. Made me smile. It made my day. And thank you especially from faculty. I'm all tongue twisted here because I got a fly on my back while I'm trying to talk here. But yeah, Christina from faculty sent me a wonderful letter, and I had to share that with my friends. I was very proud of that, about that. Nice feather in my cap. I appreciate all of those thanks I got from you guys, but hey, if you still need help, it's not over. I'll be glad to help with anything else I can help you with. And remember, wind power is not the best power in the world, right? Because it is not constant voltage when the wind starts. Your turbine has to move at a very rapid speed, a high RPM, to produce the 13 plus volts it needs to charge a battery. So all the way up to that RPM, you're going to have lower voltages that are not adequate for doing what you want to do. The only reason I have a turbine out here, I live in the desert, and the winds blow constantly out here. They're coming up again right now, and all night long they'll be blowing and making electricity for me because the sun doesn't shine at night. But the most efficient for renewable energy for most cases would be solar right now. And I've been doing some research on a new type of generator, and it is a vibration generator. And it's basically it's a wind generator that will even produce electricity when there's no wind. All it needs is vibration. So if you can set it on a pole beside the railroad tracks and the trains are running by all the time, it'll constantly produce electricity. Pretty interesting little thing. And all it is a PVC tube with a little hole in the side and some special apparatus inside, a little diaphragm at one end that allows it to vibrate, and some parts from an old microwave oven. and you got one of these things running. All right. So for all of my friends over there in I'm sorry, I was going to say civil engineering. Sorry about that, guys. Mechanical engineers at the university, I am happy to have helped you. All right, now for my next little thing here before I close this off, because the winds are starting to pick up and they're going to drown me out. I brought my tote up here, and this is going to turn into my Tote Koozie. I'm going to turn this into a jacuzzi. And I brought it over here to get started. This one's had water in it a few times, been flushed out. It's clean on the inside, so it's ready to be modified. So I'm going to be temporarily, I'll be using one of these plastic chairs to sit on inside this thing. And the top of this, I'll be taking off the top on this, and I'm not sure if I'm going to cut it up higher here or down even with this rod right here. And if I cut it off here, then I'll have to put some 4x4s underneath it to lift the plastic up higher. So this is the edge that you have at the top, and you're not going downward into it. But yeah, these two rails on the top will come out, all that kind of stuff. And I got my little angle grinder here with a diamond blade on it for cutting metal, just in case I just do decide to go down. But I can also cut plastic with that. So we'll see how I'm going to do this tomorrow. But here's the, this is a little battery. This is a 35 amp hour battery from Harbor Freight. These go for about $60, but you can get a 20% off coupon, so you can save some money on it. But yeah, I'm using alligator clips on this. Why? Because I'm using this old Harbor Freight suitcase solar panel. It's a 13-watt solar panel set up for 1224 volt. And this comes with a wire with alligator clips on it. You can carry this in your car, so you get a dead battery. You can lay it out in the sun, and in 20 minutes or so, you'll get enough charge in your battery so you can start the car and get out of wherever you're stuck at. All right, so for right now, I've got this set up for this little circulation pump, another product of Harbor Freight Tools. And this has alligator clips on it also, with a on-off switch in the wiring. I can clip that onto the same battery, and then I can pump with this. Now the green hose is the intake hose, and the yellow hose the output hose. So what I'll be doing on this jacuzzi to start with, because it's really hot. I mean, we're going into a heat wave right now, and they're talking possibly 110 degrees by Friday. So yeah, it's going to be very hot. So I want to get this thing somewhat working tomorrow so that I can cool off in the water, because there is no water out here in the desert, as you can see. And I'll have a place to just sit in there and cool off. Now, bugs out here are a problem. They get into water no matter where you have it. If it's open, the bugs will get into it. So when I cut this top off, I'm going to modify it with some little blocks on it, so I can flip this top over and set it back in when I'm not using the Tote Koozie. And that'll give me a sealed off top on it so the bugs can't get into the water. And in the meantime, this circulation pump, because I will be putting modified jets and things on this so that it'll be actually a jacuzzi. But temporarily, I'll be taking those hoses, and for right now, I'll connect the intake hose. Will be connected down there. Oh, this stupid horsefly is buzzing around my head. The intake hose will be down there, so it'll be pulling water out of the bottom, and then I'll just either hang the top hose over the top here, or clip it on with a spring clip, or I'll drill a hole in here and I'll put my first jet in where the top is, so that it'll start circulating the water as it goes. And then I'm going to be making my own homemade filter for this. And my filter will be a clean water filter, not only a sediment filter, but a clean water filter. And I'll be using stuff like this in it. This is charcoal, and this is mesquite actually, but yeah, I've got a couple of bags of this charcoal, and I'll be using some of that in the bottom, some sand and some gravel, some pea gravel, and all separate layers of it. And then I'll probably put a layer of felt or cloth over for the top catcher, so I can catch most of the debris that comes through the filtration system on that cloth, and it's easy to clean or replace. I don't have to take all of the rest of the filter apart. So I'm working on the design of that filter now, and when I get it all together, I will show you how I built it. All right, everybody, that's about all I have for today. I will be using bromine in this unit, just like you would in a jacuzzi, and I have a pool test kit because I used to have a jacuzzi at my last place of residence. I still have the test kits. I have 2 of them, one brand new, hadn't even been opened yet. I'll be testing my water just like I would in a normal jacuzzi, so I'll have nice fresh water in my Tote Koozie all the time. All right, everybody, gonna go inside and relax for a while, and then have myself some dinner and get back to my plans on making my Tote Koozie realization tomorrow. G-Bear signing off.